Source to express them. They do not represent the opinions of Synergy Entertainment Television Limited. Synergy Entertainment Television Limited does not warrant or guarantee the accuracy, adequacy, quality, validity, completeness, or suitability of any information for any purpose. In no event shall Synergy Entertainment Television Limited be held liable for any inaccuracies, errors, or omissions with respect to the information in the transmission or any part thereof, or for any damage arising therefrom. The entire risk and the accuracy, adequacy, completeness, validity, and quality of any information is within the show's producer. In no event will Synergy Entertainment Television Limited, its heirs or assigns be liable to any party for any direct, indirect, special, punitive, or consequential damages or any other damages arising in any way out of the production about to be aired.
A good Wednesday evening to you, Trinidad and Tobago, and to all of the loyal viewers of SynergyTV, wherever it is that you're taking us in, if it is that you're viewing us on air through the cable networks, or you're taking us in through the Facebook app. A pleasant good evening to you, and thank you as always for joining us on this, The Real Issues, with yours truly, Dominic Romain. Always a pleasure to be with you. So today, discuss the real issues, the topical issues, the trending issues, but sometimes we need to, go back a little bit to discuss issues on things that would have happened in the not so distant past, and to reflect on the impact that they would have on what is taking place in the country today. And we try as best as possible whenever we have this program to have live guests in studio. Unfortunately this evening, well, or fortunately for you, there is no guest this evening. But as with last week, that now provides you with an opportunity to be my co-hosts after we cross the 9 o'clock hour, to be able to call in to share your views on not just what is discussed, but also also on any of the trending issues that you think is of importance and that you may have some sort of position on. Yeah, so we encourage you after 9 o'clock, when we come back from the 9 o'clock break, to take advantage of that as we open the lines, as we did last week, to hear from you, right? So, but tomorrow we should be having a guest. If not, well, again, I will want to invite my good friend Jenny to join me, and we'll have our discussion. So, what's on the menu for this evening? Across editorial, I believe it was in today's Guardian, speaking to the issue of crime. And last week, when we had, well, a similar session to this where I had no guest, we would have opened the lines to take calls. There was someone who called in and to say, well, you know, instead of only talking about Kamla and so on, let's talk about the issue of crime. As I said, I have absolutely no problem talking about the issue of crime, but the position that I may present may not necessarily be what you want to hear, because again, what we look at is presenting. We're not about old talk, we're not about the hype, which crime unfortunately seems to attract a lot of today, depending on which side of the political fence you sit. So in today's Guardian, there was an editorial which spoke to or condemned what it called the silence on the part of certain public officials with respect to an upsurge in crime. We know over the last few days, there has been an increase in a seeming increase in the murder rate. Again, an increase in gun violence, as most of the murders that are taking place are in fact gun related. But yet still we have those who are advocating for the citizens, the average citizens, the law-abiding citizens, to be given firearm users licenses with you know, a bit of ease, to ease up the challenges that is currently faced by citizens in acquiring firearms users licenses. And there are those of us who are of the considered view that that is not necessarily a good idea in terms of treating with the issue of crime. Because while that suggestion has been sold to the population along the lines of primarily defending your home, your castle, to be supported by the stand your ground legislation or the castle doctrine, we recognize that that law does not only hold or is not only pertaining to the defense of your home and your property, but it gives you certain privileges with respect to not having to retreat should you find yourself in an altercation where the current laws would obligate you to some extent. If you could walk away and prevent an altercation, prevent any sort of fatality, you are encouraged so to do. But the stand your ground law, as we understand it, basically says, well, even though you could walk away from the situation, there is no obligation so to do. And as we've always made the point, in Trinidad, we are a grandstanding nation. You know, we like to grand charge. But shoot, man, you feel afraid to death? Shoot, man. And that type of boarding could probably lead to a number of fatalities, which some people don't want to really talk about, because all we're hearing is, if they come in my house, I gotta light them up. I empty in the clip. I had to protect my family. What am I supposed to do? Offer them a cup of coffee? Offer them something to eat? Nobody is saying that you have to do that. But again, weigh the situation, weigh the circumstance, because if you take certain advice to light them up, empty the clip, load up the matic, then you may very well find yourself in a situation that while you are trying to make a case for self-defense, you might be sitting in remand for about 10 to 15 years before you can have an opportunity to be able to make that claim. Is that something that you want to risk? But coming back to the editorial in today's Guardian, where the Guardian is basically accusing people like the Minister of National Security, the Prime Minister, the Commissioner of Police of being silent on the recent seeming upsurge in gun violence and murders at that. But I ask the question, what more do you want to hear from the office holders? What more do we want to hear, right? At the end of the day, we've heard from the Minister of National Security what his position is. We haven't heard that much from the Commissioner of Police, save and except to let us know that she and her officers are doing the best that they can, and perhaps their best is not what the country or what the citizenry considers to be best at all. Certainly, we've raised the issue here that one of the biggest challenges with respect to the crime fight is the low detection rate. That if the criminals are not afraid to commit crimes because they know that the likelihood of them being caught is slim to none, then whose responsibility is it to improve the crime detection rate? Once the criminals are afraid that they could get caught, once they know the likelihood of them being caught or perhaps even being killed in the line of fire, having committed a crime and in the process of engaging the police, then maybe they may think twice about committing these crimes. And if it is that they do, in fact, decide to go down that road, well, the fate that they may meet, that is one of their own choosing. Now, recently, the Minister of National Security, who I interviewed here a couple of weeks ago, and I would have asked him the question based on a statement or a couple of statements that he would have made within the recent past, which would have sort of attracted the ire of a lot of people in the country. And those two statements, of course, being one, that it is not his responsibility to keep the citizenry safe, and two, crime plans are not his responsibility or his job, but rather that of the Commissioner of Police. And those two statements, as I said, would have attracted a lot of negative commentary because there are persons who felt that the minister was being callous and that it is, in fact, his responsibility to both protect to cater for the safety of citizens and also to create crime plans in furtherance of that agenda. So let me just read for you a little bit, right, before I play a little clip, because I'm going to take a little different angle tonight with respect to the issue of crime. So this is an article, I think it's a Guardian article, dated Hines. A crime plan is the cop's responsibility. As this country grapples with rising crime, in particular murders and a rise in violent home invasions, National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines says developing a crime plan is not his responsibility. Rather, he says it is the responsibility of the Commissioner of Police, Ulla Christopher Harewood, and the Defense Force, which offers support to the TTPS in its crime eradication drive. Speaking to reporters at the opening of a repatriation office in San Fernando yesterday, Hines made the comment after being asked to share his crime plan and his views on the reimplementation of the death penalty, the establishment of a gun amnesty, and imposing a state of emergency to arrest the rising crime wave. Hines responded, "You have asked me some troubling and difficult questions. A minister of government does not generate or create a crime plan. This is a matter for the police commissioner and the defense force that supports the police." Pressed further, he said, "I have always said I know exactly what my responsibilities are as a minister, and it does not involve me creating a crime plan. So when I hear particularly some who ought to know better calling on me to create a crime plan, I wonder." And the opposition has repeatedly called on the government to provide support to various arms of national security in the crime fight, saying the TTPS, Army, Coast Guard, Immigration, Prison Service, and the TNT Fire Service, with the latter being in total shambles due to faulty or non-functioning equipment, especially fire appliances. But Hines yesterday responded to that call, saying, "If I had a crime plan and it was up to me, I will lock up all of them who does be talking, starting from people on the other side in the parliament, some of whom I think don't deserve the attention that they have only marginally had. So a crime plan is not for me, it is for the police, and I'm aware of what the police have planned and the strategies along with the defense force which they are operating." So I've made the point, and I made the point last week, when Gary Griffith was Commissioner of Police, and seemingly crime appeared to be on the downward spiral, nobody was calling on Hines to go. Nobody was calling on Stuart Young to go at the time when he was Commissioner of Police, and Gary Griffith would have served under both of these gentlemen. Because at that time, people were seemingly pleased with the performance of the Commissioner of Police, notwithstanding the fact that there were a number of other prevailing circumstances which would have assisted the whole crime fight situation. We would have had COVID with the lockdowns. At one point in time, persons were encouraged by the state to stay at home. And the only persons who would have been allowed out on the streets would have been essential workers and persons who would have had formal permission in order to be out on the road. So that if you were out and you didn't have a good excuse and you encountered a police roadblock, you were likely to be asked to turn around and return from whence you came. And being that given the fact that you had a heightened police presence about the country at that point in time, criminals would not have risked going out on the road to run into a police roadblock, to find themselves being searched and the police finding weapons and so on. But we don't ever want to, but people don't really talk about that. Certain people don't like to talk about that and the impact that that would have had on some of the successes that would have been enjoyed by the previous commissioner of police. He doesn't talk about that at all. And of course, those who support him don't like to talk about that. But it's a fact and it's a reality. But as I said, we need to go back a little bit. Now, this was Mr. Hines saying this just earlier on this year, a couple months ago, and he was taken to task. But back in 2013, then Minister of National Security, former Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith, found himself in a similar situation. Now, I read for you a posting from the UNC's Facebook page, or well, rather their website, unctt.org, an article entitled Minister Griffith Responds to Calls for Crime Plans, and this is December 20th, 2013. Contrary to demands for immediate crime plans by critics, Minister of National Security, Senator the Honorable Gary Griffith says he has no intentions to rush down the tried and failed road that the nation has endured before, which involved cosmetic approaches to reduce crime. Minister Griffith blamed previous anti-crime failures on an eagerness for fast results, a lack of understanding in basic security structures and management, and a hasty response to social pressures to announce crime plans after crime plan every day. He equated past crime plans seen in the past to be a useless act of putting a plaster on a sore and giving citizens false hope that the state was providing them with the security that they rightfully deserve. So in other words, his view, the Minister of National Security creating crime plans is really just trying to pull a fast one on the population, right? To give the impression that you're doing something. Minister Griffith made it clear that he has no intention to fool the citizenry and waste public funds on quick-win cosmetic schemes designed to please media critics or a frustrated public demanding immediate results. He described his game plan as one that will ensure that a proper foundation is prepared and laid out, so that appropriate anti-crime policies, when fully established, would be on firm ground and hence reap maximum results. He stated that a proper national security framework and a foundation of proper policies to reduce crime will be delivered. In addressing the current spike in murders in the country, this is December 2013, Minister Griffith stated that his critics failed to understand that the increase is the result of criminal gangs coming under pressure from national security operations and thus violently fighting each other for turf due to reduced opportunities for criminal activity and access to government contracts. He said that the citizens were in fact much safer now than they were years ago. Minister Griffith declared that he will continue to work to provide avenues to reduce the fear of crime and make Trinidad and Tobago a safer place for law-abiding citizens. So we know what were some of the crime-fighting measures under that last administration. In 2011, we had a state of emergency that ran from, I believe, August of 2011 to around December 2011, resulting in the arrest of thousands of young African men who were considered to be at-risk youth. A new prison had to be secured. A detention center in Santa Rosa was procured from Massey, I believe it was. Old Massey warehouse that was converted into a detention center in Eastern Correctional Facility, as well as the prisons. The existing prisons were already filled with persons who were arrested on the premise of lock them up and we will find the evidence later, with no regard for the impact that such a position would have on these men, some of whom were gainfully employed at the time of their arrest, and given the length of time that they were incarcerated, without any evidence, without any due cause, some of them, when they came out, found themselves jobless. Of course, their employers not willing to hear, well, look, I just get locked up because I fit the description. Because I probably wear my pants below my bottom and have a rubber slippers and I wear a white beater vest and my hair is in cornrows. That is the description. And so I was just thrown into the back of a van, taken somewhere without any forewarning or notice to my family or employers. How many of those persons would have been so aggrieved that when they were finally released, some chose to sue the state, and so it cost the government, you taxpayers, millions of dollars in lawsuits for legal fees and also for the compensation that had to be paid to some of these persons for them being wrongfully arrested. And perhaps we are seeing today some of the residual effects of that whole exercise. But it did little to stem the spate of crime, because while for that short period of time we would have had the state of emergency, curfews, and so on, and the criminals were held at bay, as soon as it was lifted, we saw what happened in 2012. Just a few months later, for the Easter weekend, we had over 12 murders taking place for Easter weekend of 2012. And while it is that we may have had an average of about 300 and something, 400 murders, the fact of the matter is, they always say even one murder is too much. But this was Gary Griffith in 2013 saying, crime plan, I'm not about that. I'm about our life. Tell me not about no crime plan. I'm not going to just come up with a crime plan because that's what the population wants to, so I should just do that to appease them and make them feel that the government is doing something. So he was against crime plans. Some of the critics of Mr. Hines today, where were they in 2013 when Mr. Griffith made this statement, basically rebuffing those who were calling on him and they said, by extension, the government, to implement crime plans? See, when we forget, but there are some of us who don't forget. And sometimes it's good to remind people of these things, that the very man today who seems to know everything that there is to know about fighting crime. And when in fact, I think he was one of the persons who criticized Mr. Hines when he made that statement. Perhaps he too forgot the statement that he made in December of 2013. But he wasn't the only person to criticize Mr. Hines. There was also criticism coming from Senior Counsel Israel Khan. Permit me to read his position on the matter. As the country, let me just get this here. No, that's not it. Give me 1 second. Right. So let me just get this here. Yeah. It is your responsibility, and those were the words of Senior Counsel Israel Khan to Mr. Hines. The recent bold-faced and shameless revelation of National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines that for the past 7 years he has not devised or formulated a crime plan to assist the police in abating the escalation of the crime scourge in our country is scandalous. These are the words of Mr. Khan. It is an abdication of his constitutional duty to the citizens of this country, and it is now incumbent upon Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley to remove him from his cabinet as a Minister of National Security. He is an embarrassment to the Prime Minister and his cabinet colleagues. I wonder if Mr. Khan was of the view that Mr. Griffith was an embarrassment to the cabinet and his colleagues when he made his statements about crime plans. Hines boasted, I've always said, I know exactly what my responsibilities as a Minister of Government are, and it does not include me creating a crime plan. My job is to provide them with the policy directions of the people of Trinidad and Tobago through the government and to ensure that they understand these policies particularly clearly. A Minister of Government does not generate or create a crime plan. That is a matter for the police commissioner, and as a minister, does not involve me creating a crime plan. I wish to inform the public, and particularly the Minister of National Security, that nowhere in our law, be it the Police Service Act, Chapter 1501 or the Constitution, the Supreme Law of TNT, mandates or grants powers to the Commissioner of Police to devise, generate, or create a crime plan to stamp out the scourge of criminality in this country. Perhaps Mr. Khan should have shared those thoughts with Gary Griffith when he was Commissioner of Police, that it was not his job to formulate a crime plan. So apparently it is the job of the minister to create a crime plan and dictate to the TTPS how they should do their job. So in other words, micromanage the TTPS so that you can have a barrage of complaints that this independent institution that the TTPS is being, is simply, as Mrs. Pasar-Bissessar puts it, a mongoose gang for the government. And well, you need to read more, save and except to say that Mr. Khan was highly critical of Mr. Hines. But you see, unfortunately in Trinidad and Tobago these days, but not just these days, there seems to be the view that the only crime worthy of being spoken about is murder and home invasions. Yeah? But the other crimes that have a similar impact on the country, on the economy, we don't really like to talk about those. So, using the maxim of the UNC, partly just as you have capital 7 and common 7, we have capital crime and common crime. So the capital crime we talk about, murder and home invasion. But the common crimes, you know, like white-collar crime, where you're robbing the citizenry blind, engaging in acts of dishonesty, thieving from the treasury. We don't like to talk about those crimes. That monies that really should be going into communities to develop community projects for the youth, who seem to be the main target of the gang leaders and so on for recruitment into a life of crime. The monies that should be going to those avenues to help those persons, instead ending up in the pockets and the bank accounts of law-abiding citizens, persons who have been given the responsibility of leaders. And, you know, it's unfortunate, but we have some citizens in this country who are so myopic. They will take to social media and they will talk about, you know, tell you about government, and this government is the most corrupt government we've ever had. But ask them to share with us the specifics, the granular details of this corruption. They can't. And I throw my mind back to 2020, the general election of 2020. For the first time in this country, we had an election campaign in which corruption wasn't the main issue, at least on the opposition side. The opposition was not, their main campaign slogan was not corruption on the part of the government. Instead, what we heard in 2020 was the government is incompetent and how many people lost their jobs and the state of the economy. But the issue of corruption didn't play a significant role. So I don't know, given that, if that is the fact, if this is the most corrupt government we've had in the country's history, why was corruption absent from the 2020 election campaign, the opposition side, as a talking point for votes? So therefore, all this corruption that the government is accused of, what happened in the last 3 years? Again, I ask for examples we can't be told. Yeah? Now there's a short clip I want to play for you, right? From Makandal Daga in 2011, where he was speaking at some forum and he lamented the state of corruption, dishonesty on the part of leaders in this country. This was 2011, just less than a year or into a year of the People's Partnership government. And here it is that you had a partner in this government, former CARICOM ambassador at the time, Makandal Daga, former chief servant, the late Makandal Daga, lamenting the state of crime. Well, white-collar crime. Just to jog your memories for a little bit, I could ask the director to just play that clip for me, please. Yeah, be there, director? All right.
In my whole 40 or 50 or 60 years, I had never heard so much corruption in one little island as I have heard in this country over the last debate. I can't understand why we have no more jail doors and just pack them in. There has been too much corruption. And every bit of corruption you and I are paying for today because the country is not in a position to deal with us as they ought to deal with us in the present condition. People are stealing money as if they invented it. As if it's their right to thief.
People are stealing money as if they invented it. like if it's their right to steal. In all of my 50, 60 years, I've never seen so much corruption. 1 year into the People's Partnership government, he has never seen so much corruption as he's seen last debate, right? So if we went back 60 years from 2011, we're looking at 1951. If we go back 50 years, we're looking at 1961. So he's saying even in the entire lifespan of the PNM and government, from 1956 come forward, contrary to what others would say, that he has never seen, he never saw that type of corruption under Eric Williams. He never saw it under Chambers. He never saw it under Robinson, Manning, maybe Pandey, well, I guess. But he saw it. 1 year. How crime plans up in that? How much money was stolen in that period of time that could have been used to fix so many things in the country today that is contributing to the state of crime? We always love to say that when the PNM is in power, crime goes up. Which crime? Murder? Maybe. Perhaps because they're not feeding the criminals box train contracts to the tune of $250,000 and $500,000 to persons who have absolutely no experience whatsoever in building box trains. But just to quiet you down now and hold something. And then that too led to an upsurge in murders between 2010 to 2015. With turf, fighting for turf. So who get the 250? Jealous of the one who get the 500,000. I need to take out the one who get the 500,000 so they could take over that contract. Yeah? W. O'Meara, 2010 to 2014, had plenty of that. Even to this date, W. O'Meara continues to reel under the impact, right? And the fallout from that practice of giving box drain contracts to criminals. But we wonder why crime is where it is today. But Gary Griffith said it. He said the criminals are fighting each other. Why? Because they're not feeding off of the government. So maybe it's a case that this administration isn't doing what the last one did. Feeding the criminals to keep them quiet. Hold something now. Yeah? But we have to go to the break. When we come back, I have another clip to play for you. And that one, a little longer. It's about a half hour in length, right? It would have been played when I was at another place. So some of you would have played it before. But it's the first time some of you would actually be seeing it. So it's a very interesting clip. And it's an interview between Afra Raymond and Rennie B. And there's some interesting revelations coming out of this clip. So you don't want to miss it. So stay locked. We go to the break. And when we come back, we head straight to that. We'll be right back.
You have skills?
My skill is public relations. I like poetry because of the fact that I can express myself and still hide behind words. Yeah, now more bold with words. I really appreciate about Alta the fact that I didn't feel alienated. I am skilled and I am Alta skilled.
Are you 16 or over? Add reading and writing to your skills with free Alta classes. Sign up at Nalis Libraries on September 5th and 6th or call 708-1990.
Tired of wasting precious time at the bank applying for a loan, only to be denied? We understand your frustration. Here at Realtor Group of Companies, we take a different approach. Contact Saeed, Managing Director of Realtor Group of Companies and licensed moneylender at 238-6716, 242-7690 or 339-1670. Feel free to visit our office at number 14 Carney Savannah Road, Chaguanas, or number 132 Superior Road, Victoria Village, San Fernando.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors, roti makers. Try Chic Leisha high quality, unbleached, bromate-free, all-purpose and whole wheat flour. Bleached flour and bromate flour is treated with chemicals that can cause cancer, and this is banned in Europe and many other countries. Chic Leisha flour offers a healthier option, being that it's unbleached and bromate-free. It also has a finer grain and a softer texture, lower priced and conveniently packaged in 2 pound, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. Available at groceries and supermarkets. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Chic Leisha Limited at 665-3336 or 480-8715 or visit them at Warrenville, Canupia. Chic Leisha Limited. Quality you can trust.
The Solid Agency, the standard for artiste management and development. Booking for an exclusive roster of the region's top-rated entertainers. The Solid Agency, the standard for event execution live and virtual, including fully loaded Shaggy and Friends, New York, Nigeria, and Antigua music festivals, Budge's Long Walk to Freedom, Bounty Beanie Versus, to name a few. Make your career or your event solid. Contact us now, thesolidagency@gmail.com. Call 1-876-469-4005. Visit solidagency.com.
Welcome back. You're tuned into The Real Issues with Dominic Romain. If you're just joining us, you're just tuning in, I don't have a guest this evening, so that will provide you with the privilege of calling us after the 9 o'clock hour when we come back from the break to share your views on or your position on some of the burning issues of the day, the prevailing issues, and also perhaps on what is being discussed tonight. So we're talking crime a little bit, but I'm putting a little different spin on it. Because while everybody only wants to talk about the murders, which is unfortunate, in such a small country as ours, to have some 370 some odd murders so far for the year. Yeah, it is concerning. And again, as I made the point before, the TTPS has a significant role to play in, to use Gary Griffith's term, pegging back the criminals, right? Because he has all of the answers. And as I said before, when he was commissioner, nobody was calling on the Minister of National Security for a crime plan. Nobody was calling on the Minister of National Security to go, or for the Minister of National Security to intervene in the crime fight. Everybody understood what the role and responsibility of the minister was then, which is to resource the crime-fighting agencies, the TTPS, to some extent the Defense Force, providing them with all of everything that they need to be able to do their jobs effectively. So they need vehicles, they need guns, they need human resources, whatever it is that they need in the crime fight, to provide them with that, to go to cabinet and ensure that they have what it is that they need, not to micromanage the police service and to dictate the pace of the commissioner, which some people are now seemingly calling for the minister to do. Because we heard the former commissioner tell us, oh, he got some $45 million to go after the opposition and to lock up the opposition and so on. And he took issue with being told what to do, and perhaps that led to the falling out with himself and the prime minister. So you say, okay. Yeah, but some of us out there, we don't need to look at our birth papers to know that we were born yesterday. Right? So I want to play a little clip for you. It's an interview, as I said before, was done between Rennie B and Afra Raymond, where they were having a conversation about a particular transaction that took place between 2010 to 2015, under the last administration, one which I think is now the subject of a civil suit, in which a significant amount of money was paid for a particular piece of land, far more than the land was valued for. Yeah? And I'm sure after I finish playing this and perhaps when you open the lines, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody calls in to tell me, okay, since you talk about that, talk about AV drilling. Well, I want to say this now. I intend to speak about AV drilling in a comprehensive manner in the not too distant future. I'm going to talk about Malcolm Jones as well. You see, and present the full facts with respect to those two issues, not the propaganda that we hear in other places, where they only want to spin the story in a certain way and not give you all of the details so that you could pick sense from nonsense. Right? Here, we do our research and we give you all the information. So let me preempt those calls for me to talk about AV drilling and 100 million. This clip that you're about to look at is more than $100 million went down the drain. Okay? So if you're not prepared to talk about this, ease me up with the AV drilling thing and Malcolm Jones and all of that tonight now. We will discuss that very soon. Okay? So take in this clip.
The Chartered Surveyor and Managing Director of Raymond and Pair, also the immediate past president of the Joint Consultative Council. His name is Afra Raymond. Good morning to you, sir. How are you? Let's see. We got the microphone.
Good morning, Rennie, and good morning, listeners. Thank you for inviting me onto the show once again to discuss this very important matter, and it's a burning issue of public corruption and theft of public money. I will say it directly. I'm not going to use any coded language. Maybe I will later on. And what we are dealing with here is a looting of our treasury, and we need to stand up for what is right at all times, particularly for those people who occupy high office and high positions of responsibility. So this is what we're going to be dealing with in this morning's program. This is a massive, complex fraud involving tens of millions of public money that was spent more than needed to be spent. And pitifully, sadly, that money came out of a portfolio that is intended to provide for the needy people in this country who don't have a proper housing option.
It is interesting
so
that this morning
from the mouths of people who don't have enough to provide for themselves. So this is true stealing, and it deserves the sternest possible treatment. So I'm glad you invited me to discuss it. Thank you.
It is interesting this morning you take off your gloves, because you were a lot more judicious back in 2013 when you said, well, maybe we're looking at mismanagement here or or the misspending of public funds. It turned out this morning you say gloves are off. Let's just get straight to it. You examined the Calcutta Settlement Land Scheme back in May 9th, 2013, I'm referring to, in which the EGC required this land. Let me just ask you, first of all, to take me to the beginning of the land purchase, not from where the HDC got involved, but take me back to the original owner, the money that was given him, then taken back, then a different amount paid a little later on. Just lay it out for our listeners this morning.
Yeah. Well, what I want to say, first of all, as a declaration, is that it's a piece of land I'm very familiar with. It's north of Central Park North, and it's on Calcutta Settlement number 2 road, opposite to Madras Trace, which is where there's a Wassa pumping station. It's about 50.5 acres of land, gently undulating land. And I'm familiar with it because I did some work on it before for 4 or 5 businessmen who were the owners of the land. But that was back in about 07 and 06. So I was this is part of my professional life. Our relationship professionally ended about 07 or 08. Not in a difficult way. I carried the work to a point and they were carrying on with other people. That happens. And in 2010, the individuals formed a company and put the property into the company. So the company purchased the property for 5 million DT. That was on the 3rd of February 2010. They had a previous agreement going back to about, I think it was 08, in which they had agreed to buy the property from the owner for $17 million. They rescinded that agreement in February of 2010, and they also granted a mortgage to the owner of the property. That was Mr. Diosaran, and that mortgage was for $18.5 million. So right away on the 3rd of February 2010, we have a difficulty. We have a transaction in which A buys the property from B for $5 million. A previous purchase agreement is torn up and agreed to be evaporated between the parties. No problem with that. The third transaction is that B is lending A $18.5 million under an instrument called a mortgage. Now, a mortgage is supposed to be an instrument where you're borrowing money and you're using the property as a security. And the tradition, the custom and practice, and the accepted professional way to do it is that a mortgage is normally for a sum that is less than the value of the property, because the lender would want to know that if they're unable to get money and if they sell the property, they can recover their money. In this case, a property that had been sold for $5 million was mortgaged the same day for $18.5 million. So to my mind, and I said so in the formal complaint that I was instrumental in preparing, to my mind, it raises an immediate question about the Registrar General's Department and the Stamp Duty Department. Okay, we haven't gotten to the HGC yet, because the HGC is down in 2011.
Yeah, I want to deal with this top part here because it also involves the stamp duty
and
issue.
In 2010, we have what appears to me to be very close to a tax evasion question where stamp duty is concerned, a breach of professional practice where conveyancing is concerned, because you're dealing with somebody preparing a mortgage for a property that in fact was just sold for $5 million. Okay, so it's and the translation of all of that in plain terms is that the property was really sold to the gentleman, the Eden Park people. They're called Point Lisa Spark Limited. It was really sold to them for a sum of money about $24 or $25 million. That's what it really means. But the amount of money that they presented to the Inland Revenue was 5. So they only paid tax on 5. 18.5 plus the 2 years mortgage at 8.5% comes out about $26 million. Now,
No, let's just be clear on that. How much they actually paid there? What was it? $340,000? Is that what they actually paid? Yes.
Or $350.
And it should have been what from your calculation? It should have been $3 to $4 million.
Let us say it's 30 million. It would have been about $2 million.
$2 million they should have paid. All right. So that's the tax evasion you spoke about. Okay,
yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. And then the other thing, of course, is that the other thing, of course, is that going forward, they start to infrastructure the land. So the infrastructure started to be installed on the land. That is roads and water and lights and so on, drains and so on. And at that point, the property was placed with two real estate agents, really. One was Samco, SAMKO, and the other one was something called Golden Key. And I have the Golden Key advertisement on my website, afroraymond.net. And the Golden Key advertisement in 2011 is showing those properties, those lots advertised at $400,000 a lot. Okay, lots from $400,000 a lot. Now, $400,000 a lot, there were only 264 lots. So $400,000 a lot, even if you multiply 264 by 400,000, you're actually getting a figure that it's really just over 100 million. Okay, you're getting just over $100 million. I think it's $105 million, $106 million. Therefore, the mind is boggling. How could one agree to pay $175 million for a piece of land that altogether at best, could only have been sold for 106 million.
But it was accepted at it was first of all handed to them at 200 million and they got a discount.
Well, I question that. I question that. Well, because I mean, so that's the first, the 2010 to 2011 period is interesting. So they're still dealing with it as a private issue because the three transactions that took place on the 3rd of February 2010 took place prior to the 2010 election. And the gentlemen were going about arranging their affairs commercially to develop the land and put the lots for sale. At some point late in 2011, they came to what you might want to call a bend in the river, to borrow Naipaul's phrase. And that bend in the river came about when the land was offered to HDC. And you see, this is what is interesting, Rennie. The first thing we have to do is to identify when was the land offered to HDC and on what terms. Because the Lyndon Scott valuation, to which there have been several references in the public, at the end of November of 2011, the Lyndon Scott valuation was for $52 million. That valuation was executed sort of in the second half of November 2011. Now, when Mr. Scott came back with his valuation of 52, and Scott is somebody I know, he trained with our firm, I know him, I used to work with him for years. When Mr. Scott came back with that valuation, the next thing we hear on the official record, if you read the press and you follow the thing, the next thing we hear is that the company, Point Lisa Spark Limited, offers the land to the HDC in January of 2012. So 2 months later, they offer the land. Which begs the question, why did the HDC request a valuation from Mr. Scott and from others 2 months before? Because the HDC doesn't have money to fling around like that. Why would they spend a fee that will be in the order of $40,000 to $50,000 of a professional fee just for a piece of land that somebody drove by and saw? I don't think so. I think that land would have been offered to them at some point in October or November of 2011.
Let me just ask you a question.
And we need to find out what was, on what terms was it offered.
Understood. Let me just be clear. So this land stood an oasis, or was there also more land available that the government could use if they wanted to?
Sure, there was plenty of land.
Right in that area?
Yes.
Okay, so just wanted to be clear on that.
So the first, I'll come back to the land question, the supply of land question. So the first thing is that there's an issue around the dates. Scott's valuation is November of 2011. Why was he asked to do a valuation? If in fact the first offer was in January of 2012 for 200 million. And there's another issue you raise, Rennie, that's important, which is the issue about the land supply. And I want to talk about that for a little while, please. And the point is there are two issues to look at here. Looking at the immediate question of where that land is. The land is on Calcutta Settlement number 2 road, which links Couva to Freeport. And it's a back road, so it's west of the highway and so on. It's a good back road. And the area has an abundance of Carney land. Carney was closed in 2004. Therefore, if one stood on that land and looked pretty much in any direction, one would be casting one's eyes on state-owned Carney land that was disused because the practice of growing sugar had been discontinued. So the burning question is, even if the HEC had resolved to build large-scale housing on disused agricultural land south of the East-West corridor, even if that had been a strategic decision they had taken, why did they need to buy any land, particularly in that area? In fact, a member of the cabinet told me, a former minister of housing at that, a member of the cabinet told me that when Carney was closed, the decision was taken that they are not going to spend any money for the HGC to buy any land south of the Carney because there was such an abundant supply of disused land that was now disused in South and Central. They're not going to spend any money. And that cabinet decision, that cabinet policy appears to have been reversed or sidelined to allow this transaction to go through. So the policy, that policy, as it was told to me, makes sense in the limited sense of conserving one's cash. There may be other difficulties in terms of consumption of agricultural land and so on, but it makes sense in that sense of conserving cash. It appears to have been disregarded to facilitate this transaction.
The Minister of Housing right there, Minister Munilal, says in criticizing some of the information offered in the civil suit, accused the minister, Minister Young, of not knowing the difference between bush and developed land. Address that, if you will. Now, because I'm just trying to follow exactly what the foundation is. They were doing the infrastructural development. That is true. But even if we put that infrastructure, what kind of costs are we talking about?
Well, I think that's an important question to look at in terms of how we go forward. Whether the land was sure it was developed land. The land was put to the HGC as developed land. I mean, I'm reliably informed that they had to spend more money doing infrastructure because I understand the development that's going there in terms of the number of lots and so it doesn't conform to the design that had been approved before. So in fact, they've changed the design and so on. The point is that we're talking about bush and we're throwing words and so on. The point is that way too much money was paid for that land.
Yeah.
I'll put it simply. At the time when the owners, the private sector owners owned that property, and there was no contemplation, no active contemplation of state involvement, the land was offered by two real estate agents, Samco and the other company I mentioned. And
which is Point Lisa Spa?
Yeah, Point Lisa Spa offered the land for sale. And
Golden Key.
Golden Key, that's right. Golden Key and Samco offered the property for sale at $400,000 a lot. Now ask me this thing. If you are a private owner and you have land for sale at $400,000 a lot, 264 lots, that if all of them were sold on the same day, which is the best possible outcome, and you collected cash on the same day, the most money you could collect mathematically is 106 million.
Yes.
Now, if you could only collect 106 million, how do you turn around a year later and sell that property to the state? And let's just be clear, for 175 million. Now, 175 million, listeners, is $663,000 per lot. So within a year, land escalated in value from $400,000 to $663,000, which in fact is about 64% increase in land value in 1 year. And I want to say, I tell you, and I want to say to Dr. Monila, I hope you're listening to this. I want to say to you that long time when I was in primary school, I'm a little older than you, they used to say that the cow jump over the moon. But the way some of these political, nonsensical lyrics are carrying on, a little bit again, and the dish will run away with the spoon.
Hello.
So we are not going to have that stealing and that disregard for good public conduct on either side, because I'm equally hard when it's PNM doing their games. On either side, it is not acceptable. We need better in this country. We are not going to let the dish run away with the spoon with any kind of nonsensical remarks. The fact of the matter is that land could have been purchased for $35 million lawfully if the Land Acquisition Act had been applied.
Yes.
We spent $75 million buying that land, and our public treasury spent 5 times more than we needed to spend buying that land. That is the scale of the theft and the waste. An interesting thing to note, I hope Mrs. Prasad Besesa and Mr. Ramlogan could be listening to this bit together with Dr.
I'm sure the information will get to them.
I also want to say that it's remarkable that this is the first cabinet, to my knowledge, I'm subject to correction, this is the first cabinet in our history, to my knowledge, where there were 2 senior counsel in the cabinet.
Who would know better?
And they ought to understand the meaning and the application of the Land Acquisition Act. All of this, the only polite way to describe it is that they were seemingly oblivious to the legal options. And the legal option would have been to allow the state to invoke its powers under the Land Acquisition Act in the face of an unreasonable demand from a landowner if land was required for a public purpose. All of that, the learned people in the cabinet, Mr. Ramada, Mr. Anand Ramlogan, SC, Mrs. Kamla Prasad Besesa, SC, Dr. Moonilal has a legal training as well. What were you all doing? 60 years of public education to do this? This is a scandal.
The Land Acquisition Act of 1994, which allows the government to move in and take property if they find one that it is not to go in and take the property for the good of the greater populace, as against it being if it's unduly asking for too much money from the government. I want to stay with one area there, Afra, because we got to the point of the $52 million that came in from the valuation from Lyndon Scott. However, the HDC did not just take this and walk with it. They had another valuation done, and that is what I want to discuss, because therein lies that question of the $50,000 that is part of the civil suit. So let us talk specifically of what happened. The $52 million was the original estimate given, and how did we get to the 200 being accepted? Who walked in the center there? Who was authorized to go and do a reevaluation of the property, and what happened?
Well, another valuation was commissioned from the Commissioner of Valuations, and the Commissioner of Valuations, for listeners, is the government's valuation officer. So they are the ones who prepare valuations as part of the Ministry of Finance. They have offices through the country. You would have heard of them recently in relation to the property tax that was controversial 2 or 3 months ago. But the Commissioner of Valuations actually prepares valuations and gives land administration and valuation advice to the state. Okay. And it appears that a request for a valuation is made in about February of 2012 from the HDC. And when the opinion was eventually received, I think it was in April of 2012, the figure that the Commissioner of Valuations put onto the same land that Mr. Scott valued in November 2011, November 2011, 52 million. The figure that they put was 180 million. And of course, it presents a very stark picture because everybody listening to this program, even those people who might be my detractors, everybody knows that if you have a property to value and you get a private valuator to value it, and then you get the government valuator to value it, everybody knows the government valuator is always lower.
Yes,
it is always much lower. So who is talking foolishness here? Everybody knows that, except when it comes to Eden Gardens. So you get to Eden Gardens and we find a reversal, and this is where the dish jumps over the spoon. And sometimes, Rudal, the cow does jump over the moon. This is exactly where it is.
And then,
so you're reversing reality and trying to tell me that that is normal. And it's not normal.
And it's amazing because for this this great disparity to be presented and nobody challenged it. It went through the cabinet. It was passed. It's frightening. By the way, listeners, those who are not in Trinidad and Tobago, the Land Acquisition Act of 1994 is not dissimilar to what is called eminent domain. It falls under the same heading. All right. So we have this. This person from the land validation area can go in and do this, come back with this figure. The cabinet accepted it. It goes in and they pay $175 million for it.
That's right. That's right. So what is happening here is that we have a situation where the Commissioner of Valuations Office prepares a report and the figure is 180 million. I know there was an earlier letter in which he attempted to dismiss Mr. Scott's valuation by saying it was grossly undervalued and so on and so on. And I want to put another question out there because we need to understand what is being told to us. We need to act like we're educated. We need to act like this is our country. This is our country. This is our money. These people, up to and including the Honorable President, Excellency Anthony Carmona, these people are public servants. They are our public servants. They may be highly qualified. They may be highly empowered by the law, but they are our public servants and they are supposed to do our work. They are supposed to serve our purposes. And we need to put a robust question out there and ask in relation to this land, how is it that we got to the point that we were accepting a valuation that was virtually 4 times more than the private valuation and nobody in cabinet? Just imagine that.
You see, that is what I find most amazing.
Just fancy that.
Nobody in cabinet watching the public purse saw this disparity and said, stop.
So let us ask the question, and there are difficult questions to be asked, but so be it. If I make some people uncomfortable, so be it. Let us ask the question. What we are dealing with, and I'm going to coin a phrase, I'm going to repeat a phrase I coined during the era of Mr. Patrick Manning with that unfortunate series of things with Mr. Colahart and Udicott and so on. And I'm going to say, what we are dealing with at the highest level of the state, the highest chambers of the state, which is the cabinet, is either a disturbing naivety or a complete lack of rectitude. I'll say it again. What we are dealing with at the highest level of our state, which is our cabinet, is either a disturbing naivety or a complete lack of rectitude. You take your pick.
If you just tune into us.
If you want to play games, pick. You want the left hand or you want the right hand? Which one you're going to pick? Because you can't have it both ways.
My guess is that for Raymond, Chartered Surveyor and Managing Director, Raymond and Per, by the way, in full disclosure, your company did do some work for the HDC at some point, so we just make that
we work for them. Yeah, we work for them. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong.
The immediate past president of the JCC. Address this question for me, please. The former minister says this issue was taken before the Integrity Commission dealt with, so why are you going back there?
Well, I think that Dr. Munilal is correct in the sense, in the limited sense, that there was a complaint made, I believe, by Dr. Rowley when Dr. Rowley was leader of the opposition, and I was aware of it. And that complaint at that time centered on an allegation or a concern over the possibility of and I don't use the word bribe, but a commission was paid to an official. I forget the amount of money. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but a commission was paid to an official. And Dr. Rowley made an allegation on those lines to the Integrity Commission. It was investigated, and that investigation was closed, and they basically felt that the matter didn't have enough evidence. From what I can remember, they really rejected the allegation on the grounds of not enough evidence. This is an entirely different matter, and to mix the two matters up, because both of them have the word Eden in it. Eden in it is nothing less than mischief for educated people, Dr. Monilal. Dr. Monilal, learned Dr. Monilal. It is mischief. This matter we are discussing this morning is about the theft and the waste of public money in a huge sum, about buying a piece of land for 5 times more than you needed to pay for it, for buying a piece of land in an area where there was abundant public land available, for buying a piece of land on which I'm reliably informed further money had to be spent on infrastructure.
Follow the money is what Minister Young says he's going to do. Yeah. And in following the money, I am just a little uncomfortable. I am optimistic that this is just a door opening, but I'm a little uncomfortable because the only target I see is a $50,000 alleged bribe that was paid for this valuation situation. But there's a lot more money involved here, and I hope it does not end singularly. I know on the one hand, you called back in 2013 for us to follow through with the tax evasion side of it, because something funny had gone on there, clearly from what you articulated this morning. But I'm hopeful that this is not just a $50,000 issue that we're dealing with, and you get a lot more fish when the net comes in.
Yeah, it would be a real pity if what came out of this. A couple of people have said to me cynically, Rennie, it would be a real pity if all that came out of this was that a relatively medium level public servant was prosecuted for accepting a payment that he ought not to have accepted. That
Hence
would be
the reason I raised it,
And in fact, the real big question is, and I'll tell you what is interesting, Rennie, let's talk about nowadays we have a phrase that we use about anti-money laundering and know your customer and that sort of thing. And one of the concepts that is alive in all of that is the concept of the ultimate beneficial owner. So something will say something is in a company, somebody will say a property is in a company's name, and this company is selling the property to that company or selling their shares. The question really is, for the investigators and those people who try to clamp down on white-collar crime and tax evasion, the question really is, who is that company? A company is not a company. You see, the whole concept of ultimate beneficial ownership goes to the heart. Who is the biological person or persons who own that company? Who are the beneficiaries? Let
me pause you right there, Afra, because that's a very important point you're making, because part of the problem here is you say, well, if Point Lisa's Park, if in fact, they made an offer, it doesn't matter what happened, the government accepted it. We did our we did our proper thing here. They did not do their due diligence, whatever they accepted the figure. We're a pilot, we're a Pontius Pilate. I mean, we have nothing to do with that. However, as you said, if you go to who are the principals, who are the people involved in that Point Lisa's Park, who are the ultimate beneficiaries of it, then you have a wider net to pull it. Go ahead, please.
And the point I'm trying to make is that, in fact, if you examine the Registrar General's files for Point Lisa's Park Limited, the company had directors, and the directors have been named in the press. The names of the individuals are not really material to this matter, because the fact is the company never issued shares. So under the sort of rubric of how one would trace who owns a company, they had managed to find a way to sidestep the transaction. Another interesting wrinkle to note for listeners is that up until the end of 2014, under our country's anti-money laundering laws, any transaction involving land and property, you had to know who the ultimate beneficial owner was, except, and this is the loophole that was beautiful, except if it was a government department or government company or government agency. At the end of 2014, that loophole was remedied, and that was an important step forward. The other thing is that the point I'm driving at is that we don't know who Point Lisa's Park Limited really was. Were there people in the cabinet who were Point Lisa's Park? Who was Point Lisa's Park? We know who the directors were. We know they own this piece of very valuable land. There must have been oil or gold or something below there. We know they own this piece of land. But
unique
who are
among
they?
all the state land that remained from
Who are
carrying.
they?
This particular parcel was special.
Yeah. Who are these people? And this is really one of the questions. So the whole anti-money laundering channel of discussion is very fertile in this question. And the other point is that there was a falling out among the parties, and there was a lawsuit, which in fact allowed us to get a lot of information.
Falling out of the parties, you mean the Point Lisa's company?
Those people fell out.
Okay.
Yeah. The actual private individuals who were doing the business together. And
this falling out happened after the land was purchased.
No, it was before. It started to rumble, and then it kind of spilled over.
Okay,
so they filed a lawsuit
follow the sequence
in like 2012. They filed a lawsuit in 2012. What is interesting is that they are at the Point Lisa's people are actually benefiting from the transaction. I mean, I think some amounts of money have been traced and so on, but the real beneficiaries have not actually been identified. An immense profit was made. As the press has said, over 100 million. I think it's over nearly 140 million dollars in profit was made.
It is one of the reasons I asked you earlier, as a surveyor yourself, the infrastructural work that was done there. What kind of dollar figure you think that would have amounted to?
Well, the lawsuit figures we saw. Let's talk about what we can identify.
Let's bear with me. I'll tell you where I'm going with this in a second. Yes.
The lawsuit figures that we saw, and the lawsuit was filed, and I got a copy of the filing. The lawsuit figures that we saw identified a figure of 29 million. Whether that was actually spent, I don't know, but the contractor was claiming that he had spent 29 million, and in fact, there had been some correspondence where that figure had been agreed.
And listeners, the reason I asked that question is because if the private valuator said 52 million, and then you put 29 million on that, you end up at about 81. How you arrive at 175? Because this is the money that we're talking about. That if I quote something you said back in 2013, you said the HDC purchase must be reversed and the responsible parties investigated and prosecuted as required by law. So I'm trying to identify what are we going after. We're going after the difference of that money when we try to follow the money here.
Sure. Let me just say to you, I will reverse your arithmetic, and I would say to you the $52 million valuation Mr. Scott did.
Yes.
Included the $29 million of work that was done in 2010 and 2011.
Okay.
Mr. Scott prepared his opinion at the end of 2011.
At the end of it.
So that $29 million, we're just saying there was a figure that was agreed between the parties, but there's a true figure.
Was included.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Was included. It was not 29 plus 52.
Gotcha.
And I started off saying that the land in February of 2010 would have been about 25 plus 29, so you're getting about 50. You see?
Okay,
that's where we're going.
It's going to be really interesting. What you expecting to get out for us as taxpayers, for the country? What are you expecting to see come out of this civil suit?
If you're planning an event, make us your first option. At Reality of a Dream, we can make your event memorable. We can assist in planning your corporate functions, moderate gatherings, family occasions, christenings, and more. We also cater for weddings and other special occasions. Our newly renovated venue includes a majestic entryway, which takes you along a path to a fantastic indoor facility, which can accommodate up to 80 dining guests. A recently completed, fully air-conditioned, beautifully designed wing, which maintains the theme and flow of Reality of a Dream, adds 30 extra seats for dining guests. In total, we can now seat a total of 110 dining guests. Come see for yourself the splendor that awaits you. Walk along the path and make your way to the breathtaking, well-maintained swimming pool and gazebo, and also the entire grounds of Reality of a Dream. We've also updated the Dream Suite, which comes with all modern conveniences, where guests can enjoy the feeling of an exquisite retreat overlooking the entire area. Reality of a Dream caters to professional events. We provide secure parking for guests, so call us at 332-6880 and ask for Harriet, located at number 15 Moses Avenue, San Juan. Reality of a Dream, making dreams come true every day.
Green Dot continues to deliver internet connectivity to a wide range of communities in Trinidad. With our combination fiber and wireless network, you get the service you need wherever you live. stream your favorite shows, enjoy online tuition, stay in touch with your work team, and connect with friends and family with internet service at a price you can afford. As communities continue to grow, we continue to deliver. Call 224-GDOT or visit gd.tt today. Green Dot, improving and simplifying lives.
You have skills?
My skill is mechanical fitting. Alta put a new meaning into my life. It made me able to do things on my own. I know where I used to be. And right now, I like where I'm at. I like what Alta have turned me into. I am skilled. I am Alta skilled.
Are you 16 or over? Add reading and writing to your skills with free Alta classes. Sign up at Nalis Libraries on September 5th and 6th or call 708-1990.
A warm welcome awaits you at Alicia's Palace, a hotel nested in the quiet hills of Lady Chancellor at 1 3/4 mile mark just above the Emperor Valley Zoo. Alicia's Palace is a perfect place to combine pleasure and business. A 24-hour facility with full amenities, including air-conditioned rooms with Wi-Fi, mini fridge, microwave, and cable TV. Designed to provide you with quiet comfort and convenience. The perfect staycation location where you can swim in the outdoor pool, soak in the jacuzzi, or simply soak up the sun, all at an affordable price. Relax and enjoy local dishes in an eco-friendly environment. At Alicia's Palace, they conduct steam cleaning of all rooms and common areas in keeping with current health and safety protocols. Whether it's a special occasion or simply just to get away, Alicia's Palace combines affordability and quality service. For more details, check out their Facebook page, Alicia's Palace HQ, or give them a call at 621-1017 or 624-8553.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying locked to the real issues with yours truly, Dominic Romain. So I saw just before we went to the break, the numbers online would have jumped. So I guess some people would have been sharing the live and encouraging others to jump on. And what an interesting discussion Mr. Raymond had there with Rennie B. So if it is that you want to get the rest of that interview, it's available on YouTube. You simply have to type in Afro Raymond Eden Gardens, and you would get the rest of the interview. Some very, very telling information coming out there. And for some of you, would have heard it before, and for some of you, it would have been the first time. But for me, what would have stood out, of course, would have been the opening statements of Mr. Raymond in reference to that whole transaction and how he characterized it really as monies that should have gone to put food in the mouths of the less fortunate in our country and to help those in need would have gone into the pockets, allegedly, of certain individuals, perhaps even high office officials. So when we want to talk about crime, it's because of poverty, persons struggling. The government needs to do more. For the government to do more, they need money. And when it is that we, taking government's monies in the quantums that we would have heard in that video there to benefit those who already have. But we take issue when Dr. Oli says there's nothing wrong with the rich getting richer, but the poor must come out of poverty. What were the measures put in place for the poor to come out of poverty back then? What are the measures that are currently being put in place now to assist the poor to come out of poverty? He also said that when the rich get richer, they create opportunities for the poor. But again, you see, when we find ourselves afflicted with a dire case of myopia, the only opportunities that we could see coming out of the rich getting richer, the only opportunities we could see for the poor is low-paying jobs. But I would just ask you, look at some of the big companies in this country that are privately owned, the conglomerates, such as Ansumakal and so on. How many young persons, a lot of these companies, Republic Bank, Scotia Bank, and so on, that have internship programs for 1 year, right? Where persons who just came out of university are given internships with a view to succession planning. So they would find themselves being placed in different levels of management in some cases, being trained in different areas of the company with a view to having these persons fill these positions at the end of these internships. But all we could think of when we hear the rich getting richer and they creating opportunities for the poor is KFC and Royal Castle and Starbucks, the minimum wage jobs. Yeah, we're not seeing that some of these companies offer apprenticeship programs that provide career guidance to our young people. Again, I reference Republic Bank that has the Youth Link Apprenticeship Program, where every year they take young people who come out of school, directly out of school. I am the product of that program. And you get training in various aspects of banking. And at the end of the exercise, usually you would find they would offer employment to these young people to fill vacancies in the bank so that you can actually start your banking career out of this program that takes you directly out of school, right? But again, we don't talk about these things. But we only like to talk about how many murders taken place and what is the reason for the murders. Yeah, it's because, as I see on the chat, there's a live conversation taking place. And the same nonsensical narrative that is PNM people killing PNM people, that all of the crime only taking place in PNM constituencies. And you don't understand that when you wash your mouth on some of these constituencies, as I always say, you know, there's a certain sector of society who always love to talk about Betaman sealants, Lavantil. But half of them who talk couldn't find Betaman sealants or Lavantil with GPS, with Waze or Google Maps. Never been to sealants, never been to Betam, never been to Lavantil, but always have a lot to say, and they are experts on these areas, right? But can offer no solutions. But of course, the solution to crime must start at home, and it requires there is a community responsibility. As the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child, but that don't happen anymore. You know why? Because we have children, unfortunately, raising children in a lot of situations. We have parents who prepared to go to school to fight the teachers when it is that the teacher rough up the child, talk to the child too hard, you ready to go and fight. We have parents who tell their children, don't let nobody lash you, don't let nobody take advantage of you. Anybody hit you, knock them down and I will go and sit down in the jail. I will make the jail fair. That is responsible parenting, right? We don't look at these things that contribute. The age-old adage, when we heard, when there was a time when if a child comes home with something that he didn't go to school with, that you, the parent, know you didn't buy, they have to explain where that come from. Nowadays, okay, that's one less thing for me to buy. You know your son works nowhere, draws no pay, but he come and hand you a wad of cash. You're asking no questions. Or if you ask, where you get that, boy? He said, gosh, mommy, you behave yourself nothing. Nah, I mean nothing. Yeah, and mommy happy because she benefiting off of the proceeds of crime. Okay? So, hey, I good. All of these different things. It starts at home. What is the contribution that is being made when it is that you see a neighbor's child going astray? I know my business, huh? You just telling your child, I don't want you hanging around them, bad influence. But you wouldn't encourage them to come. And you be a good influence. You share some good influences. No, leave them to their own devices. And the next thing I hear, they break into your house. And you're a victim of crime at their hands. And when you could have stemmed that tide, you weren't interested in it. But it's only the government. The government's supposed to do what? Baby grant, $500 a month to make child. Yeah, make child and then come and apply. You know, we have $500 to buy milk and Pampers every month. And then later on, as the child starts to grow, where is the money going to come from for all of the different things that they need? Because then we're looking for the uniform grant from the government, and we're looking for the book grant. Only grants, so we're just living off our grants. And when another administration comes in and says, this is not the way, instead of giving handouts, we need to give a handout. That is a bad thing. The government don't care about the poor people, they only care about the rich and the 1%. They see, they take away this and they take away that. And that we call good governance. That's what we call good governance, right? Inviting persons from East Dry River to come to Hilton for the launch of a program that's supposed to be in their benefit. You're paying them $69 a day for 3 months to paint a building or buildings. And at the end of that program, well, they fend for themselves until something else comes along. But you treat them like children. You have a contingent of heavily armed police, riot gear, waiting to greet them at the entrance of Hilton. Why? Because there's a bunch of never see come into the Hilton Hotel. You want them to mash up the people, please. And then you bring them inside the room and they start to get on a little rowdy. And you tell them hands up, out, down. That's the way to treat them, right? Yeah. Lock them up, call state of emergency. We'll find the evidence later. That making sense. And who profited from that? $200+ million spent for a building, an old warehouse, to create a detention center. But we will discuss that on another time. All right? We can open the lines to give you an opportunity to say your piece. What's the number again, Director? 235-5325. So you can feel free to give us a call. What are your thoughts on what it is that you would have heard just now during the clip? What are your suggestions, your solutions to treating with the crime scourge? Because it can't really be the government alone, right? Not Hines alone, not the Commissioner of Police alone, certainly not load up the matic. Hello, good evening. Hi, good evening, caller.
It's all these people who pay them thief, okay?
Yes.
Where are they now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're so quiet, eh?
Yes.
It went from a call to COVID-19, but the UNC trolls are quiet. Are you sleeping? Lose your mind in a cave? There's no current? You're back in Adam's loins? Where are you?
Yes.
Bring the proof of TNM thieving. Bring the proof because it is there. Would they say Camp, Raymond, and Rennie is TNM people? Would they sue them for that? You know they love to sue.
Yes.
I'm waiting for Kamala and the trolls of the crazy people, unite national criminals, to sue them. You know, they love court.
Yes.
I'm waiting for the axe to drop to say, TNM do this. No, didn't you open it?
Yeah.
Proof, there is proof.
Mm-hmm.
No liquid solid proof, as this guy say.
Yes.
Yeah. Liquid solid proof.
Yes.
Refute that. Mulilal, you're always talking about crime. Where are you, Mulilal? No, where are you? Because you always know the Integrity Commission investigate this. Because Wade Mark say how PM already have thing in his pocket to hide. Right? Wade Mark say about this. You was there at the time of the party. I want to hear your take on this. Are you going to lie, forget, or be seen conveniently? Come have a good night.
Thank
Bye-bye
you so much. Yeah, where are the accusers now? What is the solution to crime? Let's create 3 additional ministries to fight crime. So in addition to the Ministry of National Security, we will have the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Home Affairs, and the Ministry of Defense. So 1 ministry is not enough. We need 4 ministries to fight crime. We need 3 additional ministers so we can have a bloated cabinet as we did 2010 to 2015. So we have 3 persons now additional to the Minister of National Security who will be drawing senior cabinet minister salary, all of the perks that comes with the job. You know, we always get upset when we see these documents coming out with parliamentarians spending how much money to, getting all of these exemptions to purchase all of these high-end vehicles. But the solution to crime in the country is what? Let's hire 3 additional persons and give them the responsibility. So you're going to have an overlap. So, or reduce the amount of responsibilities that the Minister of National Security has. So who's going to be responsible for the police? Yeah? To whom does the police commissioner report to or account to? I'm just asking these questions. The solution to crime is load up the matic, give everybody firearm users licenses so they can acquire a gun. Always talking about people too poor, they can't afford to make ends meet, they're struggling, they can't afford to buy books for their children, put meals on the table, but they have money to purchase guns. I don't know the cost of a gun, but based on what I've been hearing bandied about, could be anywhere between starting at $7,000 and up, depending on the caliber of gun that you want. So you're going to take a loan for that, and money that should be feeding your family, you're going to use that to pay a loan installment for the gun that you buy, and hoping that what? You get the opportunity to use it, that somebody will, as we say in local parlance, play mad and run up in your house so you could empty the clip, load it, and empty it again? Is that the solution? 235-5325. You don't get this opportunity often to call in and share your views. So please take advantage of it now. What is the gentleman who called me last week to tell me talk about crime? I would love to hear your thoughts on how we should fight crime. How could we bring down the crime? Yeah, because for a certain section of society, the solution to fighting crime is bring back Gary. Yeah, Gary the Great, the best commissioner of police we ever had in this country's history. Turn a blind eye to, again, as I said earlier, all of the prevailing circumstances at the time, which would have assisted in the crime fight. But bring back Gary, and that is the be all and the end all. Well, if you bring back Gary, then I guess what? Do we still need 4 ministers to fight crime? Do we need 4 ministries to fight crime? Since Gary has the solution to the crime scourge in this country. So I just ask him, 6 or 1/2 a dozen of the next. Capital 7 and Common 7. I don't know. But what we know is that when we, and who really is making the rich richer? Whose policies are geared to make the rich richer? Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Romain.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Yes, she going. Yeah. Good night.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Good night, Mr. Romain.
Hi, good evening.
How are you going, partner?
I am very good.
Yeah. I have a fellow that called us early back before the election.
Mm-hmm.
No, that I got part of Mr. Romain and Mr. Bishop.
Yes.
Because I was watching, I just from the TV on.
Right.
You see what I'm saying there? Where everybody's on the government give them this.
Mm-hmm.
The government give them that. Look, I was simply a senior citizen. And I'll be proud of that. I went on the government, right? For 50 cents. They pay me to the tuition and they go and look. And I went there. I used to live a little overtime in the evening.
Right.
I go there. So then take it 2-year course to get my national certificate. But through problems, I could not finish.
Right.
The company I was working with, I was doing all the plumbing. I'm not PVC pipe, iron pipe. You have to take proper measurements. So you can't make no mistake if you make up a manifold. But the government, at the time, you could have gone to the Royal Victoria Institute. I went there too and learned electrician. Right? At the labor bureau in Lavantel, they should take down your name and you could have go and learn what some necessary was.
Yes.
Because it's here. I will learn you. You register with the labor bureau and you go and get and learn a trade.
Right.
Right there from there, I used to pick people to go to Canada to work on the farm. I used to run 3 years on the farm in the 70s and go pick apple.
Right.
But always have a chance for you to learn something. But what is going on now, as you said, children making children. Look at the guy today reading the papers who got killed somewhere. He's 16 years old. And he have a 10-month-old child. And the mother said, but he did, he's a good boy and the thing. But they said when he was doing it, they don't know he was getting money.
Yeah.
One elders tell him, why you coming too late in there? You tell, but why don't you minding the business? That was it after.
Yes.
I'm always, I look at the programs to have white tip, my lot, all kind of thing. The young fellas know, the parents, been sticking behind them. So, so you got them in my house, you're 18-year-old, and I tell you to do something to help benefit yourself. You rely on them, and with a computer and all kind of thing, and a cell phone now.
Yes.
And it's in my phone. No, the parents, especially black people, have to be more thick and be strong. Because a lot of things, I want to go behind the bridge. A lot of the come from Caroline, that Munea and Warners and all them, and came down there and telling the people in Duncan Street when they wanted to move them and relocate them. Those things, This land, you, $1 million. So everybody is saying what the government has to give you $1 million to do. But you know they're paying their rent. People wait 4 years, 5 years at $100, some $25.
Yes.
Because it's like going to school. They're planning business. So they're planning for you or thinking of usefulness. It won't be shocking, building over fresh thing.
Yes.
People just come blow the black man head and say, but the government and the government and all your poor. Nobody are poor. You will be poor if you want to go out there. Because like my mother died when I was 2 months old. I had a brother sister. I born and go right there to the Audience Theatre. And I built myself, right? I take all the courses at the time available to me and make myself a man. But I will call you again because I like your program. I like how you move it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's the kind of advice that we need, right? Because when we look at the age groups, the age bracket of the criminals, the persons who are being arrested and who are being killed, whether they involve in criminal activity or they end up in an encounter with the police, is between 14 and 28, 29 years old. What are we doing today to stem the tide so that the 10-year-old today is not going to end up in the situation that the 20-something-year-olds today find themselves in? What your child doing outside at 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock in the night on the corner, playing watchman? Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. All right, we seem to have lost that one. All right, so we go to a quick break, folks, and when we come back on the other side, we continue to take your calls as we head up to 10 o'clock. So stay locked, we'll be right back.
Skills?
My skill is cooking. Alta helped me communicate with other people fluently. It built up my confidence a lot. I just stand up and read fluently to anybody, open any book and read. I could never have done that before. I am skilled. I am Alta skilled.
Are you 16 or over? Add reading and writing to your skills with free Alta classes. Sign up at Nalis Libraries on September 5th and 6th or call 708-1990.
My parents' generation grew up with Royal Castle. From the first restaurant in 1968, when that distinctive, tempting aroma hit the air. Like never before, fried chicken with a special blend of local seasonings and a one-of-a-kind flavor down to the bone. Today, Royal Castle still have that same delicious taste, and I love it too. And the kids, they have more to enjoy. For me, the castle is more than just nice food. It's we own, part of me and you, and is the real flavor of TMT.
The rainy season is here. Don't wait until your roof is falling into call. Contact Murphy's Roofing to get all your roofing services done now. Murphy's Roofing System is offering 10% off labor, 5% off material, 10% off roof cleaning, and 10% off roof painting. So contact them at 356-7663 or WhatsApp to 987-663 or check them out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Murphy's Roofing System or Twitter at Murphy's System. And remember, Murphy's Roofing System, where you always get quality work for your money.
Are you stressed and worried by problems? Then meet Priest Santosh G. Priest is specialized in palm, face, photo, and date of birth reading and gives solutions to problems in marriage, relationships, love, business, job, health, and removes all negativity and bad luck permanently and gives good luck and also gives lifelong protection. Home consultation is done. Call Priest Santosh on 756-8401. That's 756-8401.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying locked to the real issues with yours truly, Dominic Romain. As I said, it's always a pleasure to be with you, and we're discussing the crime scourge this evening. But instead of focusing on the problem, let's try and look at some of the solutions. How do we stem the tide of crime? Because crime is everybody's business. Yes, it's a cliche, but it is everybody's business because everybody's talking about it. Right? Everybody's complaining about it. Nobody is pleased. But where the murder statistics are, nobody is pleased when there's another home invasion. Nobody wants to be looking over their shoulders whenever they leave home. They make their way back home, right? Nobody wants to have to be hugging their bags and so on tightly for fear that somebody's going to come to snatch it. But how did we get here? This is what we should be focusing on. How did we get here? And no, it's not about the government. And under the PNM, every time the PNM in office, crime goes up. That's just a narrative that people push. And they will quote statistics and data to say, well, look at it, 600 murders and the record under the PNM. Well, what you doing to assist in fixing the problem? When it is that your child has been bullied and your solution is to go and find the bully and beat him up in the road. Yeah, that's the solution, right? When it is that you couldn't care where your child is 10 o'clock in the night, 11 o'clock in the night, because you in your bed sleeping soft, and you already write him off, I know you're saying, well, it's only a matter of time before the police pick up with him. I don't put aside some money already to bury him. It's only a matter of time before I hear they find his body in a drain somewhere. You made that child. Yeah? And if it is that is where they are, it is a reflection on your parenting. So when I hear people say that, I can't accept the narrative that the child went astray and all. You should have dealt with that from very early on. Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Dominic.
Hi. Yes.
I'm watching something and it's so ironic. There's this video I heard you have mentioned this morning of an Indian businessman.
Yes.
Beating his wife, his girlfriend, with a pulp.
Yes.
You're not hearing nobody talking about it. Had it been an African man beating an African woman and some Laventil, beat them all over, it would be all over the news, police are looking on that. The 16-year-old was killed was the baby. His mother is Indian. They ain't talking about that, but had it been from beat an African 16 years old, that child would have heard all over. So the point I'm making is this. Crime is not an African thing, as it does want to make it look like somebody and the life put his PNM supporters, killing PNM supporters. Crime is not an African thing or an Indian thing. Crime is a human thing, and it issues with everybody. Under Jack Warner's tenure as the Minister of National Security, crime was out of control under the PP government and Kamala Prasad as the Prime Minister. Jack Warner would have ordered the police and then not to print no crime stats. About nothing happening because you got to encourage people. So we was knowing what was going on. But under the PNM, every day on the front page, you're seeing our body and you're seeing our body. It must put in people's mind that everything out of control and then every day here. But they cover it up under the UNC and the PP government and make people feel in this utopia when nothing was going wrong. And that is what the UNC does. They sell you an illusion and people buy into that with the propaganda. And when they get the reality from the People's National Movement, who's standing in defense of all citizens and doing what is right for all of us in this country, let us just go back to what the thing they were seeing, the illusion they were seeing on that camera person besetter. They don't talk about how she was drink from and drunk and it's not we say so, you know. Or she knows people saying that. They're talking about how they say there's thief in the UNC, you know, that they thief all the money from the treasury, you know, they don't hear that at all. All they just tell me about is O'Halloran, who dead from so long and never get back that money. They always say O'Halloran purpose when they talk about corruption in the PNM after 30-something years. Or just 5 years in the UNC, how much people we had in crime and still counting, they don't talk about that. This is a master step. We have to have an open and strong discussion about race relations in this country because it is going nowhere. And Kamala Prasad has reared the ugly head of racism in this country since they came into office in 2010, and it got out of control in 2020 and that's continued. And once we start to push them back, as people of African descent and right thinking citizens, they start to play the eternal victim as if it means them something. I want to tell them something. When all the pushers are going to get pushed, Because at the end of the day, all of us have to live here in peace, and you cannot continue to tell us those things about us as African people and don't expect us to respond. It's not no war, nothing no, but we'll speak to you in a way that you will all understand. You cannot no longer treat us like that. All of us living here, we came here on different ships, different experiences, but we are here now, we have to make this move. Dominic, you jump quickly and thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have another call online? Hello? No? Let me say this. Mrs. Pisani says I would have said a couple of weeks ago on the platform that, you know, one of the things that this administration has done away with baby grants. They allocated $120 million for baby grants, right? Only 20 million was used up until the point in time in which they left. And we don't know how much of that was legitimate persons who genuinely needed the grant and how much of it went in bubble. But 120 million was allocated for baby grants. You just heard in the clip with Mr. Raymond and Rennie B. 123 million in excess was paid for that land that was valued at 52. So approximately $123 million more was stolen. This is why Mr. Raymond would have made the point. Money that should have gone to assist the poor. Invest in programs, as one of the previous callers spoke about, right? The trade programs that he would have gone to, that today gives him certain skills that he could pass on. Not everybody is academically inclined, but give them opportunities. But you know what? You have those who would sit down on a radio station every Saturday and talk government bad. They need to give the youth and them contracts. Give them contracts, okay? Give them contracts. They know how to do a proposal, a RFP. They have any registered business, so how are you giving them contracts? Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening to you, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Good program as usual.
Thank you.
But you know, I cannot jump in late because I'm trying to do 150 things in one year.
Yes.
Right? But I know I was in and out there.
Yeah.
But I would have able to grasp that you were talking about the crime situation in the country.
Yes.
Regarding all the guns and the corruption and all that bacchanal. Right? Now, I can recall that under the Mario Pandey administration, we had a Minister of Education that would have abolished punishment from in school. Right? And I think it was only fair that if you abolish that, you put something in place to discipline children.
Yes.
They did nothing about that. And that went on for 25 plus years. This is the end result we have today. You understand? And then you as a former prime minister, a former minister of education, a former AG, a former prime minister, and now the opposition leader, come on a platform and spewing all that goobar, right? What do you expect? People learn by what they hear and see. So if they hear that and they're seeing it, they ain't think it's wise, they will do it. Oh, nah, man. And this is the problem we have in the country. Monkey see, monkey do. Right? I think to deal with the crime situation in this country, crime begins with you and me.
Yes.
Right? If we fix ourselves with crime, we can fix the family, we can fix our community, and by extension the country.
Yes.
In this country, in the communities, know the gunman, the drug man, the pusher, the raper man, everything they know.
Yes.
But you know why they want to come forward? Because we cannot cut on the side. Either that, or they're fearful of what the outcome will be if the criminal hears you with a leech on them.
Yes.
You understand? But you see, Dominic, I think that in Parliament, we have no opposition. We have a bunch of criminals, full stop. We have a bunch of criminals in the opposition at present because not one of them have a clear code. None of them, from the captain, comes straight down. I think the only man might have a little cleanness there, or we ain't know about yet, is the FD from Mayaro. But every one of them, Dominic, everybody has questionable action. That is the reason why they refuse to support any legislation in regard to dealing with gun crime in this country. And then you have Mutomo Tom talking, right? You was there. You said what Munilal did, and you said that they were what they were doing. So I personally think, Mr. Dominic, before I go, the opposition in this country is a non-entity. I think the best solution for Dr. Rowley at present with this crime situation is to seek international aid. That is my take on it. Because at the end of the day, you have to deal with the criminals outside, and then you have to deal with the opposition. So I think seek international aid, and we can address the situation regarding crime. And all them shown on the Facebook. Public for all you. Look on listening.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Hello, good evening. Do we have another call in line? Hello? Right. Yeah, we have a recently elected UNC councillor. 4 reports made to the police since 2020 about him using his licensed firearm to threaten people. But today, he's sitting in the Shogunas Borough Corporation. Hello, good evening.
Yeah, I about the previous call I last week.
Yes.
We were talking about the education system.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Now, one next thing. Because this she managed corporal punishment in school.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Shorty sang the calypso. You chase the creator out.
Yes.
No praise. I like you. When I used to go pick the lacy, in the morning, you line up, they inspect your nails, they inspect your shoes, they inspect the your dress. Lunchtime, we say the grace before meal, and we say grace after meal, and in the evening, we say praise when school over. All of that, she got out. You get the man over $100 million, over $1 billion on the wastewater plant. We're not talking about money to help people.
Yes.
On the wastewater plant down on the Peeps. The 19 lecture laws of people that take. And you know what going on, Dominic? A lot of reporters don't ask the person be and with Mark a man who failed 3 exams and could not sit down among other people's peers to take the exam.
Yes.
He suffered things. Go in a room by himself and he passed. You see, he got a letter from the judiciary, right? Stating that we could have one case with the money. You laugh at what you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the judiciary to write him back. In Parliament, and so we never write this man no letter, and he states in the Parliament, I'm not supposed to be with the poetry. And he asked him, we were you land on the hook and out.
Yes.
But the press in this country took bias. It's one side that it's bias. They don't ask him, no, not at all. She just talked to me and she's gone. Look at what we said why during the election and talk to the country, explaining. She never do that. Jack Warner come back because she all kind of, you could imagine a man calling my mother so and so. I will call her again.
Yes.
You hold it and come back and talk to you and say, but she's the best thing, she's a Mandela. Jack Warner have no thing for you because we do Gally coming. He obstruct Gally because of them plenty work, you know. Because Gally coming is the only man stand up there.
Yes.
With the Simonga report, with the over 7 tickets in the oval, and because Gally said, no, he offered Gally to go to Simonga because I have it in the book. Because I read it.
Yes.
He offered something thousand. And me and Gally, we go way back, we go to school together. We played for North School together in 1960 against Women Archibald. Right? Like first time. And Gally said, no, I don't want your money. You come and treat me because I kill so much of people in the oval. That way a man hate Gally for. And they knocking. Anyhow, I was listening to somebody else had to come on.
Yes.
I could talk plenty. I have seen my brain.
Yes.
Right. Good night again.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Yes. I think we need to have more nights like these where we give you the opportunity to share your views. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good evening, I am good.
Okay, my contribution dealing with crime. There's a saying that hanging is not a deterrent to murders.
Right.
But if I should draw your memory back, that when they hanged old Chili and his gang of 9, 2 weeks after those hangings, there was no report, and I repeat, no report placed in the country. We had all these crime rates and murders taking place.
Yes.
Old Chili murder 100%. That
Yeah, well, so the caller is advocating, of course, the return of the hangman. The hangman didn't go anywhere. It's just that the law has become so convoluted, unfortunately. It's difficult to get anybody to the hangman. And for those of us who would recall the extreme measures and the lengths that the then Attorney General Ramesh Manraj would have gone to ensure that all of the remedies available to Mr. Chidi and his gang of 9 was exhausted, such that they were eventually hung. And I think subsequent to that, a few weeks later, a gentleman by the name of Glenn Ashby was also hung as well. And it definitely would be a deterrent. I disagree with anybody who says it wouldn't be, because part of the reason why crime is where it is. Remember, some of these guys, when they go into prison and they've tasted prison life and they become immune, seasoned, so they don't mind going back inside there. Some of them come out and they prefer life on the inside and they deliberately engage in criminal activity. And if they get catch, well, okay, no biggie. Inside there, you have some of them have rank and all of these different things, and these are the things that we need to take into consideration. But I would remind you, and Mrs. Prasad Bisasa loves to talk about education is the passport out of poverty. Yes, I agree with you. It's the passport out of poverty. But then where is the plane ticket? So she wants to give you the passport and you reach in the airport. But if you don't have a plane ticket, you go nowhere. You're going to go to the airport and look up on the departure board and see all of the various destinations available for travel, but you don't have a ticket. And so this administration now is saying, come, we will give you the ticket. How are they doing that? With a variety of programs being offered through the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. Let us not forget that it was the very same Keith Rowley that they want to vilify created a ministry specifically to treat with youth issues, to develop programs for the youth across the board. But there needs to be a contribution made by corporate Trinidad and Tobago, because the government cannot do it alone. And that is the problem. Everybody wants to focus on the government and the government. And meanwhile, we have big companies in this country who are making tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars in profits every year. Corporate social responsibility. Kudos to all of those companies that have programs and you see, when we talk about the whole issue of cheating, it's not just about the young people alone and the youth, right? Because there are persons in their late 30s and 40s and so on who may have had a late start, and persons who are seeking better employment. Some of them are underemployed. We have persons who have degrees and different qualifications, but are working in jobs that are paying them less than they are qualified for, unfortunately, right? So how we need to be able to match some of these skills with the availability. Sometimes you look through the newspapers, you go on social media, Facebook, and you see a whole lot of vacancies available. However, the qualifications that are required to satisfy or to fill these positions are a lot. Why aren't we guiding our young people and even some of the older folks, right? Persons in their 30s and their 40s and so on, to let them know that at that age it is not too late. I can give the example of a friend of mine who I know was at one point in time working in CPEP, right? But with 2 kids, but she had to make ends meet at the time. But she had the mindset that, you know what, this is not going to be my lot. And working 2 and 3 jobs. So aside from when you come home from CPEP, you have the rest of the day. She went and found other jobs and was doing side jobs and earning an income, and she was able to improve herself. Today, she's on the road to becoming a nurse. On the road to becoming a nurse. But I know others who have embraced poverty. So, and I'm not saying CPEP is not a bad thing, because when the PNM envisaged CPEP, really it was, the primary focus was to create entrepreneurs. So you would have come in as a contractor, you get your job, you get the hands-on experience and so on, you earn some money to be able to build your business, and then another cohort come in after you move on. But some people have made a career of CPEP. And I know some people, there are other opportunities, but they have decided, I am going to build a life around this income. Any support that I could get from the government by way of grants will supplement the rest of my financial needs, and I go here because I want a morning work. I don't want to be working any 8 to 4 job. I don't want to go and work in a factory from 8 to 10, well, from 6 to 2 and 2 to 10 and 10 to 6. I recall under the People's Partnership in 2013, we had a number of factory owners who were complaining at the fact that because the government had expanded CPEP, that these factory owners are finding it difficult to get workers to work even the normal shifts, 6 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon and 2 in the afternoon till 10 in the night, far less for the graveyard shift of 10 to 6. So they were struggling with a skeletal staff. So even though they could run 3 shifts, unfortunately, they only had staff for 2. And if it is 2 or 3 people missed that shift for whatever reason, problems. And they were complaining. There was a meeting held with the Chamber of Commerce, and they were complaining about that by the government's expansion of not just CPEP, but all of these different handout programs, giving people grants for this and grants for that and so on. There was no incentive for these people to go and take up some of these factory jobs, where aside from the salary that you're earning, you have some of these, you're getting perks such as group health insurance, in some cases group life, you're able to get a job letter to go to the bank, and so all of these different benefits. But we embrace this thing about, I want a morning work. I recall during the THA election, that was perhaps the most echoed sentiment coming from a lot of the candidates, that they're working, and all the young people telling them, all the youth telling them, yeah, I want a morning worker in the THA. When I finish work by about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I have the rest of the day to just relax. And the money that I'm making at the end of the month is just sufficient for me to buy certain things, the basics, and that's it. Where is the ambition? Let us not forget that when the PNM created UTT, or in the process of creating UTT, it was Mrs. Prasad Bisasa and the UNC who opposed it, on the basis that we already had UE and we didn't need to have another institution to compete with UE. And we have so many other private tertiary education institutions in the country, and therefore UTT would be undersubscribed and so on. But Mr. Manning had a vision when he created UTT to develop the tech work side of academia. But as soon as the People's Partnership came in 2010, all of a sudden they embraced UTT. Create a ministry of, well, I think that was in place before, but they wanted to expand the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Tertiary Education. They all of a sudden, when you were in opposition, you didn't see the value of UTT, but you came into government and you suddenly saw the light. But all of the criticisms that you would have leveled against it, and the government that put it in place, were there any apologies? No. Let us not forget, under them, it was dollar for dollar. One side of the gate open, and if you don't have a dollar, hard luck, you would be left outside. So only the folks with a dollar step in this line, and those of you who don't have, step across on that line. Go back and get your dollar and come back. Mr. Manning said, open the gate wide and let all come in, whether they have the dollar or they don't have it. All of these different things, but we love to jump on the bandwagon to say the PNM do nothing for this country. And it's the PNM causing crime. And crime always goes up under the PNM. Because the fact is that every time the PNM does anything in this country that targets, in particular, the most vulnerable, the at-risk youth, who unfortunately come predominantly from the African community, the UNC is always quick to run to the courthouse. Right? When Mr. Manning had the scholarship fund, where they call it a PNM slush fund, and they run to the Equal Opportunities Commission to complain that it is discriminatory. Everything like that, anything that even hints of affirmative action, we're quick to run to the courthouse and the Equal Opportunities Commission to claim discrimination, to bring the program to an end, but nothing of substance to offer as a replacement. When they canceled the life sport, was the same thing. They said, don't worry, we will give you all something to replace it. Nothing of the sort happened. And all of those young men were left by the wayside after millionaires were made from that very life sport program $400 million spent, and the persons who were supposed to benefit the most, the at-risk youth, didn't. But we're out of time, but not out of things to see. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Join me again tomorrow evening, hopefully. I will have my intended guest, but if not, Jenny, I'm putting you on alert. Wendell get his chance yesterday, so you ought to come tomorrow, and we will continue perhaps this very discussion and the way forward with respect to treating with crime, but more so how do we engage the youth and others who are in need of that direction. So thank you again, enjoy the rest of your night, and we will chat tomorrow.
into which a lot of people outside of the training unit are drifting. That the training facilities and requirements of one group of people are something, and for another group of people it's something else, and that is reflected in different locations. At all levels you have lack of training, inefficiency in management. The requirements are the same, even though the jobs might be different. And above all, the mentality with which the different groups are.
It is a big day for the small man as the Prime Minister, Dr. Eric Williams, arrives at the pilot farm project to make the first distribution of Crown lands to farmers following his Meeting the People tours. Lands totaling 1,210 acres are to be distributed to 242 persons for mixed farming. The Prime Minister noted that there were 100 agricultural farmers among them, in keeping with Cabinet's decision that a certain emphasis should be placed not only on people with agricultural experience, but also on people who were unemployed and had no land of their own. In satisfying that passionate desire for land which so many people had shared for so many decades, they were not only improving the employment pattern, but improving also the status of and giving dignity to persons who never had any stake in the country. The land for distribution was formerly leased to the United States and used as a military base under the 1941 agreement, but was handed back to the government of Trinidad and Tobago under the revised agreement resulting from the Tobago talks in 1960. To ensure that every applicant has a fair chance, farmers are asked to draw numbers from a ballot box. According to the number drawn, a farmer is allocated a corresponding farm on which to grow, under supervision and with credit and other assistance, such food crops as are suitable for the soil, and to rear poultry or other livestock. By taking landless people and making them farmers, we are starting off on a new line, whereby the children growing up may have the respect for the land which their fathers and their grandfathers lost over preceding decades. Thus we are not only helping people today, but taking a positive and direct step towards the reorganization of our society along the healthiest possible lines, taking people from the periphery of the city and putting them to grow food for an expanding population.
Monday, 30th August 1965, rail commuters between Port of Spain and San Fernando passed through Port of Spain's railway booking hall for the last time. One of the chapters in Trinidad's transportation history is ended. The Trinidad government railways, plagued by operational losses, are closing down the southern arm of its rail operations, including such romantic place names as Jerningham Junction and Rio Claro. Rail enthusiasts as well took the opportunity of this last historic ride, not the least attraction of which was the thrill of going through the Tabaqui Tunnel. Engine number 27, 40 years old and still capable of hard work, headed out the last train. The Trinidad Government Railways, however, will not be going out of business entirely, at least not in the immediate future. The Eastern Rail service between Port of Spain and Arima is still being operated and handles an average of 15,000 commuters per day. This Eastern service operates to a schedule of 40 round trips daily with a frequency of 1 train every 10 minutes during peak hours. As yet, there has been no final government decision on the railway's Eastern service.
Following the national consultation on steel bands at the Shagaramas Convention Center in January, Cabinet reached a number of decisions to carry out recommendations of the consultation. These decisions were the employment of pan tuners, the training of individual steel bandsmen in music, employment opportunities for steel bandsmen, and residential courses in business administration for steel bandsmen. On Monday last, the first residential course in management for steel bandsmen began. The course is intended to acquaint the steel bandsmen with the general features, institutions, and practices of the local business environment, to assist steel bandsmen to identify the special nature of the business relationships which should characterize the steel band as an artistic, commercial, and industrial enterprise, to impart to steel bandsmen the basic principles governing business organization and practice, and to develop in steel bandsmen an awareness of the role of law and legal sanctions in commercial and industrial activity, with special reference to contracts, agreements, and contractual obligations.
On behalf of the staff of the Personnel Department, I extend a sincere welcome to you all to this brief but significant formal ceremony for the launching of an introductory course in business administration for members of the steel band movement. Without in any way wishing to be invidious, may I, on behalf of the staff of the Central Training Unit of the Personnel Department, specially welcome you, Mr. Prime Minister, and the members of the steel band movement to this center, each for different reasons, of course. This training center, situated in the scenic environment of the historic Northwestern Peninsula, was opened by you, Mr. Prime Minister, according to the records of my department, on May 20th, 1968.
I'm very glad that Mr. Cupid has indicated to the members of the steel band movement its scope, objectives, and operations of the Central Training Unit. I think Mr. Augustus of the Steel Band Association and his colleagues will now understand why it was that I insisted, when we were discussing the question of implementing this principal resolution of the steel band consultation, this resolution that comes from the steel band movement itself about the course of training, that I insisted that it should be done here at the Central Training Unit, and that we must stop this idea into which a lot of people outside of the training unit are drifting, that the training facilities and requirements of one group of people are something, and for another group of people it's something else, and that is reflected in different locations. At all levels, you have lack of training, inefficiency in management. The requirements are the same, even though the jobs might be different. And above all, the mentality with which the different groups approach the question is the same. So we bring you up here, and if it's too hard for you, it shows you how far you have to go up. Is that clear? You come down here where everybody else comes. And I do hope, Mr. Augustus, that after all the noise you made about this course, we'd have a dedication from the steel band movement in respect of this training course, such as we associate with their sessions of music when they're playing for carnival, when they're playing for panorama. You can't have dedication in one field and then something else. If we could only get, as I said repeatedly, the sort of attitude that the population as a whole has to the entire carnival celebrations, if you could have that throughout the year, Trinidad would be and Tobago would be the richest country in the world. There is your chance. I'm very glad to see you down here. And as you all know, if it hadn't been for your insistence that this should have been after Carnival, you'd have been down here before. So if we had to wait all this time before the class, it's at your insistence. We'll follow with very great interest what you're doing here. As you know, it's one of 4 courses for this year, 30 each. Next one, I understand, is the 1st of July. And I want you all to understand that behind what Mr. Cupid has said lies the expertise, the organization, governmental organization, which makes this unit possible. The particular course that you are going in for now, which to translate your ideas into what you require, would involve business environment, business organization, elements of business practices and methods, business law, relating particularly, as far as the steel bandsmen are concerned, the question of contracts and contractual arrangements, and development of a model business unit as a group project, our entire idea that's going through various levels of the steel band movement of small business, whether it's a cooperative. 2 or 3 steel band units have asked for the possibility of taking over the pavilion by the zoo to run it as a cooperative. Before you go into that, you should have some ideas about what is involved. I hope you have read it, but I would like to emphasize for you here this morning the purpose of the course. It's there in your program. Number 1, to acquaint steel bandsmen with the general features, institutions, and practices of the local, including, if relevant, regional, that is to say, West Indian character, business environment. Number 2, to assist steel bandsmen to identify the special nature of the business relationships which should characterize this steel band as an artistic, commercial, or industrial enterprise. I, for example, have heard a lot. Some of you are here when I went round to the steel band movement about the question of a sponsor not keeping to his side of the contract. I think, Mr. Augustus, that has been separately discussed out of the steel band consultation. I would like to tell you what I found more disturbing. I'm not sure if the group is among the steel bands here. Sponsors complaining that the steel band is not performing its side of the country. One notorious case has been very, very embarrassing to the government as a whole, because the sponsor was a government corporation. Number 3, to impart to steel bandsmen the basic principles governing business organization and practices. And number 4, to develop in steel bandsmen an awareness of the role of law and legal sanctions in commercial and industrial activity, with special reference to contracts, agreements, and contractual obligations.
My impression about this course, looking at the syllabus of the course, I got that it's a very good course in the interest of PANmen, so that PANmen will really approach the course in the course of business administration in the right perspective.
For the few days I'm here, we are seeing we are getting to know a lot about business, right? We had a field survey, and this proved very exciting, and you meet several people where you got different opinions of things. I think in the next few weeks, we will be able to be better businessmen, I believe, after this course.
Well, the course, it is a very great, it is what I would say, something that the steel man could learn as much as he could about business, because steel man is a business. And I think that after this course, we will be able to go back to our bands, our various bands, and also Pan Trinidad, and try to make steel bandmen better off in Trinidad and Tobago.
I could learn a lot because this is only the 3rd day. I say the 3rd day because this is morning time really for those who are looking in. And we've been out 2 days on survey. That is Tuesday and Wednesday. Monday was the, day you come in and get to know the tutors and all this sort of thing. And we've been out meeting other people. I mean, the business sector managers, divisional managers, engineers and all these other people, to know what business is like, to know what you got to expect in business. Right here now, I like to say to the people who have been helpful, who we didn't have to tell or show any identification, to know what it is. At one time, I went to IDC and I heard a person who came in to see the manager had to be coming there 2 weeks and wasn't privileged to see him. I wasn't privileged really to see him, but I saw 1 or 2 people who was of, let's say, great help. I hope that their help would sort of, help me along the lines of the business management course, which is provided to the steel bandmen, so that when they go back to their respective band, they will be able to impart the knowledge, and in so doing, set up a business that might be of interest financially to the band, so that not only when Carnival, and you got to wait till next Carnival, or when you get a chance to play out, so that you could make something. I think all in all, it's a wonderful experience. It's meeting steel bandmen too, who you have not been in contact with. Togetherness, you sit down after you recap what you do. The only thing is, this course should be 24 hours a day course, because there's so much to do. I've learned so much in so little time, and there's still a lot. I don't know. I hope when it's finished, I'll be able, as I said earlier on, to go back to my respective band, and I hope each individual representative will be able to do the same in some way. This course has been a help to each individual steel bandsman.
So that we are happy to see you here and to welcome, as you agreed at the convention, at the consultation, representatives of all the different zones into which you have divided the country for steel band purposes, including the zone of Tobago, plus the executives from the Tobago Association and the association in Trinidad. We hope that you will be comfortable down at the Tembladora. We try to keep people together at the course, because a lot of discussion will go on after the formal class session and it is useful to bring Tobago together with Caroni and Caroni together with Point Fortin, St. Patrick's, and so on. As we proceed to work on the other numerous lines of investigation and activity arising out of the steel band consultation, we are glad to welcome here this morning to the Central Training Unit the first of the courses for 1973 in steel band business and management. Welcome all of you from your different bands, and we hope that you would set an example not only to the other steel bandsmen that will follow you, but undoubtedly to the other groups like yourselves in the community, which will be calling on the government for assistance in the form of training, if only as a preparation for the many small businesses that we hope to see operating in due course.
Columbus was a mighty sailor. He sailed the open seas. He went down in the Caribbean and he called it the West Indies. He said he found a new world and he expect me to believe. But how could this world be new when it's much older than Adam and Eve? Columbus lied. Columbus lied. Columbus lied. Columbus lied, lied, lied. He said he discovered the whole of America. He never tell nobody how we had to run from Apache. Columbus lied. Columbus lied. Columbus lied so bad. I believe Columbus was mad. The man with the Santa Maria was as brave as a man can be. He sailed on to Venezuela for another discovery. He said he discovered new lands and he thought that I wouldn't know. He discovered a lot of Indians who discovered the lands before. Columbus lied. Columbus lied. Columbus lied. Columbus lie, lie, lie. He took all the glory from any discovery. The truth of the story, those lands were discovered already. Columbus lied. Columbus lied. And if you concentrate, you will discover the man was slave. Nowadays you enter a strange land, they call you an alien. You got to explain to immigration what is your intention. Columbus didn't have to do that. It just didn't make no sense. His authority was a cock hat, and his passport was violence. Columbus life, Columbus life, Columbus life, Columbus life. He fooled everybody with a whole lot of fantasy. I don't know why he did it. Maybe he thought the Indians were spirits. Columbus life, Columbus life, Columbus life like hell. I believe his head was to 12. You might think I don't like Columbus, and the truth is that you are right. Though his name will be always famous, for me that man was a blight. He discovered North America, he discovered the West Indies, the same place they sent me forefathers, and subject them to slavery. Columbus life, Columbus life, Columbus life, Columbus life. He said he discovered the whole of America. He never tell nobody how he had to run from Apache. Columbus life, Columbus life, Columbus life so bad. I believe Columbus was mad.
The TGR was in operation from 1876 when it started operating into Arima, and it closed on the 20th of December, 1968. When I was a little boy, maybe 3-4 years old, I would spend my time watching the trains go by, and it was sort of there is where my passion for trains really begun. Always wondering where were they going to, you know, who was driving, who were the people that worked on the railway. I always wondered these things. Seeing all the different passenger trains going by, cane trains, the oil trains and so on. And it sort of fueled my imagination, you know, it sparked an interest which has really been lifelong. The TGR was introduced while Trinidad was under British colonial rule. However, that was not the first railway in Trinidad. The first railway or tramway in Trinidad was built by William Eccles, and it ran on his laissez-faire estate, which was on the northern banks of the Superior River, just south of San Fernando in the Naparimas. Before the coming of the railways and before you could take a steamer between Port of Spain and San Fernando, if you wanted to do that trip by land, it would sometimes take you 2 days, having to cross rivers, especially the time of year. If the weather was bad, it could even take longer. The railway was very important, you know, in establishing movement and communication between all the small districts and everything coming into Port of Spain. It also has to be remembered that the railways actually built all the roads. If you look at the railway coming out of Port of Spain, it went as far east as Sangre Grande. Okay, so that was the end of the line going east. Going south, the line got to San Fernando first of all, then it continued on to Siparia. So that was the southern extent. If you want to go to the central part of Trinidad, it eventually reached Rio Claro in the center of Trinidad. Those were the main lines, and then you had another branch line between Marabella Junction and Princestown. The first line into Arima was very successful. In fact, when the Arima line opened in 1876, they estimated that each inhabitant of Arima would ride the train 6.5 times per year. The objective was to go south, go through the industrial heart of Trinidad and Tobago, through all the sugar estates, all the sugar growing areas, get down to the south and have the second town of importance, San Fernando, as being on the railway map. And eventually everyone wanted a railway station in their town. And of course, you can see today where the lines ran, because all the villages came up along the line. Most of the villages you see along the southern main line and into Tabaquite and so on all gained importance after the coming of the railway. There's not a lot left today in Trinidad because the railway, of course, was scrapped after 1968 and taken up in the 70s. For me, the most important thing is to preserve the locomotives that are still around. I think that if we were able to restore all those engines cosmetically, then we could have something that is very important for the tourism of our country and something that's historic in its own right.
have the last word on culture and civilization. They do not know what we are capable of. They do not know what we are thinking. Because my work has only just begun. Up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty, up you mighty, up you mighty. Feel it down in your soul, till you can't control it. Put your hand up to the sky, mama don't ask why. In these dark and lonely times, we gon' turn the tide. If you're looking for a sign, turn and look inside of you. Your body is a temple, your sweat is holy water. Every move you're making is praise unto the Master, yes. Yeah. Because you're powerful, powerful, inside, outside, wonderful, magical, beauty, can't hide. Me and you, never lose, trust me, can't lie. Hopeful, till the day we die. Whoa, powerful, yeah. My beautiful people, full of wonder, wonderful. Whoa, powerful, yeah. My beautiful people, full of wonder, wonderful. Up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty, up you mighty, up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty, up you mighty, up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty, up you mighty, up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty, up you mighty, up you mighty people. Everyone know that we coming through, coming from this out of the archipelago. We have soul and colorful for soul, but them mashing up we good living, we don't live so. Call your neighbor them, what's me name again? State your claim again, tell them we go rain again. Because you're powerful, powerful, inside, outside, wonderful, magical, beauty, can't hide. Me and you, never lose, trust me, can't lie. Hopeful, till the day we die. Whoa, powerful, yeah. Oh, my beautiful people, full of wonder, wonderful. Whoa, powerful, yeah. Beautiful people, full of wonder, wonderful. Up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty, up you mighty, up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty, up you mighty, up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty, up you mighty, up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty people, up you mighty, up you mighty, up you mighty people. Because my work has only just begun.
Such a rarity to born in TNT. You could see that as lucky or unlucky. But once you're living here, this is your family. Niceness of the land is in the sea and sand. Is the champion in every citizen. So don't let nothing hold our people down. Cause when we cry, whoa, It is be for a short time, and when we smile, whoa, it is stretched from mile to mile just to survive. Oh, it takes spirit deep inside, we always shine. Yeah, and I could say exactly why, cause we create the rhythm in this calypso, and we who make the carnival that the world know. So if you feel it, you should let it show, cause we are mighty. It's we who make the pan in the last century. Our people from Japan come in here just to see. So if you doubt in your ability, go this we country, cause we are holy. Even though we are 1.4 million, we does make quality men and women with intentions to forge we nation on. It's the struggles we face here every day that make leaders rise out we community and sometimes creating great history. See what they strive for was as strong as TNT, risking their lives for the common folk like you and me. We know they are pure for them to fight so viciously. So take some time to respect legends of TNT, cause here is where the God in fight for civil rights, and Anthony Sabga break economic strife, and Uriah Butler get colonials a fight, cause we are mighty, mighty. Ciela James make people stand up tall, and Leroy Clark give TNT his all. So tell me, how could you say you wanna fall? Cause this we country, cause we are holy. Everywhere we go, people always agree that we are the life of the party, representing we land infectiously. If you have some of we in your DNA, then you could become a celebrity, even if you're from foreign country. Because we vibe, we are. When we having a good time, the whole world dark for so. But TNT in the spotlight, we life is like a show, and that does make hard times alright. So let me tell you why my people shining so bright. It's we who put the wine in Mighty Sparrow, and we who put the hype in Marshall Montano, and we who put them legs on me boy at all. Cause we are mighty, mighty. It's we who put the flair in Brian Lara, and we who get white Yorkie raw power. So if you're feeling like you are not a star, so this we country, cause we are holy.